Assalamu alaikum. In this lesson, we will be covering the rule of Ra. We will recap from our previous lesson. We learned there are 7 heavy letters in the Arabic alphabet. The letters Kha, Sad, Dad, Ta, Dha, Ghain, Qaf. From the word Khus, Dagh, Tin, Qid. There are 2 exceptions to this rule, the letters Ra and the letter Lam, which only varies for the word Allah. All the other letters are light letters. Now, let's have a look at the rule of Ra. We have 2 words here, Al-Bariyya, where the Ra is red light, and the word Adraka, where the Ra is red heavy. So what makes one heavy and what makes one light? We have to look at the symbol on the letter Ra. If the letter Ra has a fatha or dhamma, the Ra will be red heavy. But if the letter Ra has a kasra, the Ra will be red light. So for the word adraka, the Ra has a fatha, so the Ra is red heavy. For the word ma'arufin, the Ra has a dhamma, so the Ra will be red heavy. For the word al-bariyya, the Ra has a kasra, so the Ra will be red light. So what if Ra has a sukoon? Let's look at the following example. فَأَثَرْنَا. The Ra has a sukoon, so we look at the symbol on the letter before the Ra sakina. If the letter before the Ra sakina has a fatha or a dhamma on it, it will always be pronounced heavy. So the first word, فَأَثَرْنَا, the Ra sakina is preceded by a tha with a fatha. So فَأَثَرْنَا is red heavy. Qurbanan, the Ra sakina is preceded by a qaf which has a dhamma, so it will be red heavy, Qurbanan. If the letter before the Ra sakina has a kasra on it, then it is pronounced light. There are 2 exceptions for this rule. Number 1, when a hamzatul wasl comes directly before the Ra sakina, and number 2, when the Ra sakina is followed by a heavy letter. Let's have a look at the first example where the hamzatul wasl comes directly before the Ra sakina. The Ra will always be read heavy regardless of what symbol is on the letter before the hamzatul wasl. For example, there is a kasra before the Ra sakina, so usually we will read this light. However, just before the Ra sakina, there is a hamzatul wasl, which means we will be reciting the letter Ra heavy. The second example is when a Ra sakina is followed by a heavy letter. Now remember what the heavy letters are: Kha, Sad, Dad, Ghain, Ta, Qaf and Dha. The Ra is pronounced heavy when it is followed by any of the heavy letters. So if we look at the 2 examples below, we can see that there is a kasra before the Ra sakinas for the word qirtasin and mirsadan. However, because the Ra sakina is followed by a heavy letter, we will be reading the Ra sakina heavy. So it would be qirtasin, mirsadan. Now, another rule is where the letter before a Ra is a ya sakina. If we are to stop with a Ra at the end of a word and the letter before the Ra is a ya sakina, then we will always recite the Ra light. Look at the example below. The word khair. We will not say khair and make the Ra heavy, we will make the Ra light. Now let's summarize the rule of Ra, as there were many different concepts that we learnt. So the first question is, does the Ra have a sukoon? If the answer is no, then we have a look at what is the symbol on the letter Ra. If the letter Ra has a fatha or a dhamma, then we will read the Ra heavy. Example, adraka. And if the letter Ra has a kasra, then we will read the Ra light, as the example, al-bariya. If the answer to the question, does the Ra have a sukoon, is yes, then we will have a look at the symbol before the Ra sakina. If the symbol before the Ra sakina is a fatha or dhamma, then the Ra sakina will be read heavy. Example, qurbanan. If the symbol before the Ra sakina is a kasra, then we will ask the question, is the Ra followed by a heavy letter? If the answer is yes, then we will read the letter Ra heavy, as the example, qirtasin. If the answer to the Ra followed by a heavy letter is no, then we will see that is the Ra preceded by a hamzatul wasl. If the answer is yes, we will make the Ra sakina heavy, like the example, liman irtada. If the answer is no, then we will read the Ra sakina light, as the example, fir'auna. Another scenario we saw is where we wanted to stop on the letter Ra, which was preceded by a ya sakina. We will always read the Ra light. Khair.